Hello everybody, Chris here. Today I have John Maher, the director of Bluecoats 2006, Throw It Down. If you haven't seen that film, go watch it. I think it's a great film. I think it really accurately describes the member experience of drum corps a lot better than a lot of films, documentaries, TV shows out there. So, welcome John.
Thanks for having me here.
Yep. Yeah, really excited for this. Let's just start off with some easy questions for you. First off, I think a question that a lot of people are going to be wondering is what inspired you to kind of do a documentary about drum corps specifically?
Well, I went to film school in Oklahoma under the great crazy film instructor Ned Hockman, and I met a lot of people there. We had like a little film colony, and one of the guys was John Kelly, who I stayed in touch with after he moved east to be the film teacher at Westchester State College in Pennsylvania. And we did a number of restorations together, and he always wanted to make a film. I had been working on some other documentaries, and he came to me with this idea. And initially I thought, how are we going to tackle this? What's interesting about these funny guys and girls in feathered hats and, crazy costumes running around a football field? I really didn't know that much about the subject, so we thought if we tackled it as something, what goes on inside the head of a drum corps person, and what's the process like? Why did they do this? It might work. It might be valuable. So that's how we approached it.
And then how did you come to select the Bluecoats as the specific corps to focus on?
Right. Well, I should say to start with, John Kelly wanted to make an art film. He wanted it to be a road trip, and he wanted to base a lot of his feelings were to base it or have the vibe of what I call the world's most dangerous documentary, which is Koaniskatsi, that was made in 1984 by Jeffrey Reggio, produced by Francis Coppola. But he wanted to have that sort of that vibe of it, that it'd be a art film road trip. And one of his colleagues at the college was a guy named Chuck Bauerlein, who had two of his children, Luke and Isabel, were in the Corps. So we already had a kind of an in with them, and we kind of found out in our research that the drum corps were rather insular and kind of self-contained groups that didn't take well to strangers,
Yeah.
Um, so, and we were not drum corps people, so it was actually quite a process of getting the Corps to trust us, to be honest with you. They had a film made by a student a couple years earlier that was rather salacious, and they were a little bit leery of having someone come in. So we spent a lot of time getting to know them. We went to Texas and I think Minnesota and a number of places to meet some of the drum corps people. And we had a board meeting, and the Bluecoats board wanted the what they call the right of final cut on the film, or right of first cut, maybe it was. And John Kelly just got up and started to leave. It's like, whoa. He said, no, we're not doing that. You have to trust us that we're going to tell the story, but we need complete access.
Yeah.
So the compromise was no talent show, no freshman talent show, and no bus war. And we kind of said, okay.
I know
So
you did get that bus war in there.
yeah,
I
that's
clip,
a whole
so
sub story. Yes, yeah. So it really was a matter of getting, and we had quite an emotional time once at one of the meetings, the early meetings of the Bluecoats. We had cut a kind of a trailer or a sample reel, we called it, with our interviews that we had done with Joe Beitman, the drum major, and Luke. And they loved it, and they said, "You're part of the Bluecoats family now."
yeah.
That meant a lot to us, and we weren't out to make an expose. We were out to tell a story, not for drum corps people, but to just regular folks that didn't know what the heck this was, and what was involved in telling the story, or what was going on with drum corps. So that's how it happened.
I think in you choosing to tell the story to outside people, I think it made it even better for inside people as well, like as a member, just accurately depicting the member experience
Uh-huh.
and explaining it away in the most obvious way possible that anybody could kind of pick up on that. It made
Right,
it
right.
it felt really good watching it where it's like, yeah, I've gone through those exact moments, that kind of stuff, especially.
Yeah. Well, we always asked ourselves, what's interesting about this?
Hmm.
Why is this interesting? And how could this be interested to an 80-year-old grandmother somewhere who had never seen it? It's just a matter of saying, here's a piece of the human experience,
Hmm.
and as filmmakers, how do we tell the story?
Yeah, I know that when we had talked over the phone previously and stuff like that, you shot in HD. You were with them for a long time, so that must have been super expensive. So, A, how much did the whole film cost to produce, and then B, how were you able to fund the whole project?
Right. Well, we spent 28 days with the Corps, I think, on location, and we spent a year before we actually even got principal photography going, just getting in with the Corps, getting to know them, trying to figure out what our schedule might be, and I think the total amount in dollars today would be about $475,000,
Hmm.
um, and it was a challenge just getting our heads around how we were going to shoot it. Now, it was funded by John Kelly himself. We didn't get any money from the Bluecoats or DCI, and I think this is part of the reason we could stay kind of objective and tell the story the way we wanted to. But John basically wanted to do this project, and he had the funds, so off we went.
Yeah.
After we finished shooting in August of that year, we had, I think, 60 plus hours of footage. And My executive producer, John Kelly, was diagnosed with glioblastoma, brain cancer,
Hmm.
really bad. And so he had to drop out of the project. And my brother jumped in because he really felt that my brother had worked with me in the early days of when we worked together back in the 80s. But he felt the film should be made. And so he picked up the producing end of the post production. So, and the thing I'm very, very happy about was that John Kelly lived long enough to see a 96% percentage cut, a very fine cut of the film,
Hmm.
or it was released before he passed away, and he really liked it. So we did make his art film, his dangerous film, and his road trip. So
Yeah. Well, that's great that he was able to see,
yeah,
especially with funding a project. That means that obviously he wanted to see it, so I'm glad that he was able to get a viewing of that.
we had we had a lot of work to do. It was a lot of work in the edit room, and I have to just say credit. Can I credit my crew?
Yeah, go ahead.
So obviously, number one, John Kelly, tremendous guy, really, really smart about film. My brother Ed, who was the producer of really got the thing completed. It was just wonderful that uh, he was able to do that. Chuck Bauerlein, associate producer, was the guy who connected us with the Bluecoats, and I think he was the one that really convinced the Bluecoats that we were okay to work with.
Hmm.
And having his input and having his children in the Corps at the time was a tremendous asset. So he was a great resource. And then who else can I talk about? Well, Pete Stewart was our sound guy, and he recorded stereo
Hmm.
on location, which is very unusual in production because it's a real pain in the neck to do. But
I'm
I
sure when
ins-
you're outside as well, that's got to be really rough.
Yeah, yeah, and just being able to do justice to the drum corps sound, which I think he did
Hmm.
in stereo in the field day after day, is quite an achievement. He's a tremendous sound man, and I'm so lucky to get. And it's not sound man is not the right word. It's more like sound designer.
Hmm.
Uh, and so the other guy that I have to credit is Jason Rodriguez, J Rod, who is our camera assistant, and he was great. He kept all this new high def technology uh, on an even keel. He did we shot videotape, by the way, because this is before there were any cards or anything. Storage was a huge issue.
Yeah.
And so he was the guy who managed all the tape stock and the batteries and just kept everything going. And often I would go to a place where I wanted to shoot because I ended up shooting the whole thing. But I would go to where I wanted to shoot and just go like this, and he'd have the camera right there. The other guy that I have to mention is Marty Fiji, who did the original score.
Mm.
Just amazing. A guy I've worked with for, oh my God, 35 years or more. And he's kind of irascible, as many musicians are. And but he is a tremendous composer, and he did all original music that blended with what the Bluecoats were doing. And of course, the editor is amazing editor. This was our ninth film, and Craig Mkhitaryan is a tremendous editor, one who I was always scared to go into the edit room with. I wanted to make sure I was organized. I would have these, what I call story islands. Here's Lauren's Dream and Bad Show.
Yeah.
And basically and I call them story islands, that have a packet of time codes and shots that I would then bring in, and we would assemble something. But I was awful scared of him because I wanted to make sure I was giving him the best.
So what were the hardest parts about filming on tour? Drum corps it's very close quarters. There's not any space. We talk about the bus being out there on the field in 90-degree heat all day long. So like with those kinds of things, and additionally with having camera crews and all of that stuff, what was the hardest parts about being on tour with them?
Well, I think my biggest concern, Chris, was messing the corps up because they were very seriously committed to doing the drill the best way they could and having a good showing that year. And I think that was the best they ever did up until that year, fourth place. It was a very, very big deal. And so we were concerned about two things: getting what we needed to tell the story, and not just totally screwing up what they were doing. So it really was a cat and mouse game the whole season, not to mention, of course, the heat. And if you are a film crew, you have to be out there before the corps gets out.
Yeah.
You got to get them waking up and going to sleep. So whatever their day is, your day is just a little bit wider. And the heat was tough, and just the idea of kind of getting a sense where to go next. And we did we shot for 28 days, and we did an awful lot of camping out, just waiting for something to happen or thinking something might happen.
Yeah.
And just having that sixth sense of where to be at the right place in the right time. And I'm sure we missed a lot of stuff, but we got some stuff too. So
one question that an audience member actually had, I think it was, I'm not sure if it was a comment or an email that was sent to me. They were wondering about the music licensing thing, because there wasn't a ton of shots of the show where we heard the music and stuff like that. And so they were wondering, and I'm wondering additionally, was that a stylistic choice, or was that purposely left out for copyright issues?
No, it was a stylistic choice. We had complete copyright. We purchased the rights to the music that the Bluecoats, they call the mechanical rights of Bluecoats' performance of those songs that are listed in the credits. And of course, the Bluecoats gave us permission to record their performance,
their arrangements, and that.
So it wasn't that. It was, my feeling was that I thought the drill would not hold up for a full 11 minutes on camera. I don't think the drill per se is really great on film by itself, because it's really, ultimately, you either do a lock-off shot of the whole field, or you zero in on an individual. In either case, you're missing something. So I felt that I was more interested in getting the process of getting to that point than showing like a large part of the drill.
Yeah. I know that when you and I spoke over the phone, it had to have been like a month and a half ago or something like that. You talked about some issues with DCI. So could you kind of elaborate on some of those issues?
Well, I think word got out that this film company was coming in to do what they were calling a major documentary on drum corps, and we kind of thought the DCI would be thrilled about it, but turns out they were kind of borderline hostile, to be honest with you, with us, and I don't know really what that was about. I know at one point they asked, "Well, why aren't you doing it about all the corps?" And we explained that there'd be no focus there. You really have to filmmaking, as in doing the drill, you have to narrow down and get the peak of what you want to do, and you just can't do that with how many cores, 13 cores, 14 cores in finals.
At
So
that time, it would have been 12 cores in finals,
of
and
course,
then like 30 something in the semifinals, and so yeah,
that
it's a lot. What were maybe your reactions to and your opinions on what drum corps was from the outside perspective, and maybe also your crew, if you got any of those thoughts while you were with them?
well, I think we thought it was weird, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Why would people do this? And even Luke says, "Why would I do this exactly?"
And why would they pay to do this? And secondly,
Oh, that's
is
the other thing. Yeah. So that part was curious, but I think what overshadowed that was the idea that these people are really dedicated in what they're doing,
Mhm.
and there's this unity of purpose that is very important. It's a rite of passage for sure. I look at, and we were very interested in the mythology of drum corps, the pennies and the what do we have? The Gunther, the
We have
uh,
the core medallions too. I got
yeah.
mine right here.
Oh, there you go. So the mythology, and we really followed Joseph E. Campbell's hero's journey is very interesting about mythology, and so that was a big part of it. Is following that hero's journey and what the helmet symbolized, what the pennies symbolized, and also the song
Mhm.
um, "Autumn Leaves"
Yeah.
for the Bluecoats. So we would kind of drift away and then come back into the scene and hide sometimes and sleep sometimes and come back um, and kind of get our material that way. One of the things we heard about was this Autumn Leaves song that was something uh, the Corps did, and we said, "Well, when can we get it?" And it was sort of like, "Well, when it happens." It's like
Yeah. That's
you
usually how
don't
it goes
schedule
with
it.
core
It's like
songs.
and then they say it just kind of happens. So we spent most of the year worrying about how we're going to get this, and we were in Texas. I remember after a whole performance, and we were back in the tunnels of one of the stadiums, and um, the Corps has just gathered around together, and we thought maybe they were just going to be talking about getting on the buses or what their evening schedule was because they did have to travel that night. And they were in a circle, and I just popped through to the middle of the circle with camera and with Jason camera assist and Pete Stewart, our wonderful sound guy, and they started going and they did Autumn Leaves a cappella, and we caught it all in one shot. And so I was very, very happy to get that, Chris.
Yeah.
Then when it came to licensing later, I had to go through a particular licensing agency, and they said, "Oh, you need to talk to Marie. She's the one that handles the standards." I'm like, "Oh boy." I was really worried because I had actually earlier, Chris, wanted to use a song in the film for the credits called "The Reason" by Hoobastank,
Yeah.
and they wanted $40,000
Oh
uh,
wow.
for a limited no internet use of it, and we just did not have the budget for that. So now I'm on pins and needles about Autumn Leaves because I got a very good version of it, I thought, and I get a hold of call the licensing agents, and I get down different people, and this older lady gets on. Hello, she said, "Hi, I'm John, and I'm Mar, and I'm interested in licensing Autumn Leaves." I was just super worried, and she
Yeah.
said, "Well, Mr. Mar, that is a American Standard. It's called. It's part of what they call the Great American Songbook. It
Hmm.
was written in 1945 in France, and then was re-released with some new lyrics in 1955 in the United States. And I just thought it was sort of so weird and so cool that these young Bluecoats people were singing this song that was even before it was really my parents' generation,
Yeah.
post-war, World War II. So she said, well, it's a standard thing. And I said, well, I have this funny situation where this group of drum corps people were singing it, and they're all teenagers, or most of them. And I ended up sending her a cut of that section.
Mm.
And she said, okay, you can use it. I like what you did. And then I was holding the desk and go, what are they going to charge us, for this? Having had Hoobastank want 40 grand.
Yeah.
And she said, no, it's okay. I'm going to send you the paperwork. You can have it. No charge. You did good or something like that. And I went, oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. So, so we just didn't even know what they were going to be singing when this happened.
Yeah.
And after a long, long day and a long performance. So here is the Bluecoats, Autumn Leaves.
I can never be with those same exact people ever again in my entire life.
You've built so many strong relationships with these people, and you don't want to leave that. And for me, aging out, I'm leaving a family of 135 plus. And it's like me having to bury that. But since you went away, the days grow long, and soon I'll hear old winter song. Conducting Autumn Leaves is like my final goodbye to them. But I miss you most of all, my darling. When autumn leaves start to fall.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. There's your unity of purpose,
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I was lucky to have with the film people I worked with in college with Ned Hockman was lifetime relationships, lifetime friends, lifetime colleagues, people I still work with today. And I think the drum corps can offer that same feeling.
Yeah.
People that you bond with for a long, long time. Yeah, and the Bluecoats were right to say you get it when you get it. That
Yeah.
We're not going to rehearse it. We're not going to even necessarily. We don't even know when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So that part of it, and I think I have to give people like Chuck Bauerlein some credit to giving us a heads up of it may happen,
Yeah.
and be ready for that. So I'm real happy that we got that.
Yeah.
You threw it down. Oh, yeah. Good job.
How'd it feel to you guys? Yeah. Is it better than last night? Yeah. There we go, man. That's it.
I can't tell you what an honor it is to stand in the center of this circle. It is so cool. The power of 135 people connected is much, much stronger than 135 individuals. That's always going to be the case. And this is what your show is about, and this is what this corps is about. You can count down the number of shows on two hands now. It's been a pretty incredible 9-month journey. No regrets here to the end.
We are getting upstairs. Now we have to own the stadium. We have to put the stadium inside our sound, not just reach the last guy. Okay, we got to bring the entire audience inside the bubble. You know what I mean by that? Yeah. This part of yourself I'm completely confident about. Time to commit this part now.
But listen, man, do you understand what kind of impact you are making on drum corps history right now? Do you have any idea? You're there. Do you understand that? You're there. You're what little kids dream about. Do you know that? You are what little kids look up to and dream about, okay? Because I've been 22 years old. I've wanted to stand in front of one of the world's greatest horn lines and be the guy to do this. One of the guys to do that. Thank you very, very much for making one of my dreams come true. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I really like the emotion there, and the fact that the old timers, the instructors, were really moved by the Bluecoats' performance that night, and I thought it was very interesting when they mentioned something. Everybody there was right on it. They knew exactly what they were talking about, and so I thought that was a kind of a magic moment for the Corps.
Especially for staff members, like now that I'm working on staff for a drum corps, it is very interesting, like hearing the different perspectives and then just hearing like sometimes, well, because I'm still learning, so hearing how accurately somebody can say like, this is what needs to happen, this is what, and listening to the judges' comments as well. It's definitely an experience, and I'm sure being able to hear that is like, wow, that's just so much knowledge and stuff like that in those things.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm sure the other thing is there's another section called Bad Show that goes before this where they didn't have a very good night. And the instructors are talking turkey about that evening too, and everybody gets it.
yeah.
And I think that's part of the unity of purpose thing. You support the people you're working with. You support. I call it a tribe.
Yeah.
You support the tribe, and so it's exciting to see what I would call really good, straightforward communication. This is not the corporate boardroom. This is the football field.
Yep, and it happens. It's kind of hard to equate like drum corps to football in some ways, but sometimes you just have to think like every single time that you're not on a field and you're just having a discussion, that's your timeout. You know,
Right.
You just
Well,
need
there's
to
it. Yeah.
apply all of the information that you're given. At least for me, being able to see so many groups rehearse and stuff like that, there's really big differences between a good rehearsal and a rehearsal that's not quite there yet. And the majority of that is on the members leading themselves and doing it in a way that's going to be as efficient as possible to get them to where they need to go. And that's what wins championships right there.
Right. Yeah.
So before we finish off, did you have anything else that you kind of wanted to add to the film, any backstory stuff, or just anything that you kind of wanted to say regarding the film at all?
There was one guy, Justin Lewis, who I kind of dug on the core. He had like earrings, big earrings in his ears and stuff.
Like the gauges, those circle ones?
Yeah. But he had his own language, which I thought was really great. He said, and I think I got two lines in the film that I liked. He says, "Taking doses makes you stronger." Taking doses, and so I equate that to mean taking lessons in life makes you stronger. And then the other one, he said he was really tired when I said, "John, I'm just chopped out. I'm chopped out tonight."
Yep, that's a brass thing. I'm chopped out.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it's like the meaning of when you play for a really long time, because this is a muscle, right?
Okay.
So brass players specifically, all wind players really, you have to build those muscles, and it's actually like a workout thing that you kind of have to do on your instrument. And so
that's something new. I didn't know that. That's
the same way that if you were working out and your muscle is just done, same thing here. So we just call that getting chopped out, because your chops, you're done.
Yeah, chopped out. Yeah.
Yep.
So do you have a scene that you want to show or you think about? Or
I didn't have a scene that I wanted to show. I did have a question about one scene, and I think it was one scene that I was really just enjoyed, because it kind of just reminds me of our dreams. We have these things called tour dreams, and for some people it's a worst nightmare.
Tour dream.
Yeah, because the way that we explain it is, when you go to sleep and you're dreaming, it's your one escape.
Right.
Throughout all of tour. And we call tour dreams is, if you're doing something so much, sometimes you just have dreams about it. And having a dream about rehearsing is just not what you want. Sometimes you wake up after a dream of rehearsing and it's like, now I have to go to rehearsal. It just makes you feel more mentally exhausted. I think that was one scene that you captured quite well, with the dream scene. I don't know if that was intentional.
So I had this notion of what I call the bus dream, which is this kind of liminal state, or this in between state where, when you're practicing all day, you're really not fully awake because you haven't slept that well.
Yeah.
And when you're sleeping, you're not really sleeping fully because you've got the drill in your mind all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that juxtaposition and that melding of those two ideas, and that's what the bus dream was all about.
Yeah, I think it just captured the tour dream a little bit too real for me, and I was like, wow. I don't know if I was like, somebody either told him about it or it's just a huge coincidence, because that's a thing. That's a thing. Going to sleep
I was warned against it. It was going to be too weird or too out there, and people weren't going to understand it or thought it was made up.
Yeah.
And later I found out that drum corps folks did dig it and understand it. So
yeah. Personally.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I'm glad, because as a filmmaker, you want to see that the ideas land. That people get. It doesn't make any sense if you're doing something that nobody gets or nobody understands. You've missed it, the mark. The other funny thing was the bus war, because
the bus war.
halfway through our Texas tour, we had spies within the Corps that were telling us, bus war tonight, bus war tonight. Well, but there's 3 buses. If you don't want to, you don't count the instructor's bus, there's 3 buses with the Corps on there, and we didn't know which one it was going to be, and I think we picked percussion. I'm not sure, but we just got lucky one night, and we captured a bus war, which was really crazy. And I just thought the whole environment of the bus was very interesting. In general, and having that as part of it was really rewarding as a filmmaker.
I think it's really interesting because it speaks to subcultures in the Corps themselves. Like, you have your individual section subculture, and then the bus subculture is a big one, because you spend, I would say, an equal amount of time with the people on the bus than the people in your section, and those might not be the same, and they also might have some overlap there. And so the drum bus, historically, everywhere, is probably the craziest bus.
And when I asked that question about the Corps, what's the craziest group in the Corps? Hands down. Oh, the drummers.
Yeah. Percussion always has a very strong individual section culture.
Right.
And it's always been interesting to me, because there are certain things that percussions have as traditions from Corps to Corps overwhelmingly. And one of those things that is like the cymbal. I don't know if they had a cymbal section in Bluecoats. I'm sure that they did. There's a cymbal subculture.
Oh my God!
Like, just 4 people in each corps just have the same exact culture, and so that's always been interesting to me. And I think you captured that quite well in certain sections of the film.
Now, the only other thing, Chris, I would like to say, now that we're going 20 years on from this, is where are these people now? I'd be very curious to see if any old Bluecoats of that era that were in the film resurrected themselves or came forward somehow to talk about their lives today. That might make a good follow-up call at some point.
Yeah, I'm sure that a lot of them are probably educators in the modern day, whether it be drum corps directors. I feel like that's a pretty strong, pipeline, I guess. A lot of the cats that do drum corps end up doing education in some shape or form. So it wouldn't surprise me that that's where a lot of those people are at.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I am super appreciative that you were able to get back to me, allow me to post the film in the first place. I was
same
kind of
here.
just shooting a long shot, and you're never sure with those kinds of things. But to me, it just felt like something like, wow, people need to be able to see this, and it was kind of challenging to find where it was at, unless you wanted to spend. I think it was like $30 something on Amazon Prime for the DVD, and
Yeah.
in terms of DVDs, I mean, we are starting to move away from that quite a bit. So I do really appreciate you. I'm sure that the audience very much appreciates being able to see that, and just kind of see a video where we're not only focusing on an individual drum corps, but also a moment in time and how that's changed in the modern day. And I think you captured a lot of things that were different. I loved seeing some of the moments where there was members with flip phones.
Yes,
And
yeah, I
to
was
us,
gonna say that.
that's really funny to see. Of like, oh
Yeah,
wow,
this is all very early social media and pre smartphone, pre iPhone. Sure.
yeah. And one day I hope that I can find a film that was pre cell phone, and they
Yeah,
capture
yeah,
moments where everybody's lining in front of the phone booth and doing that kind of
yeah,
things.
yeah, right. Yeah.
So
Well, thank you for having me do this, and I hope a bunch of people get to see it. And if anybody wants to know more about JEM Films, they can go to jemfilms.org.
Yep, and I'll throw up a link in the description for that. And then, do you mind if I also put your email? I'll show that
Oh,
on the
that's
screen
fine.
in
Yeah,
the description
absolutely.
as well, so
That's
people don't
fine.
skip at
Yeah.
that. All right.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep. Thank you so much.